Good morning. How are we today?
Bright and
Morning.
breezy.
Yeah, let's go with that.
Bright and breezy. Yeah, well, that's a good start. It is Monday. So thank you so much for joining today. I was really looking forward to this call because you are both very pragmatic accountants that see things through the whole lens. So really want to have a good chat today to understand what you're seeing in the world around finance and sustainability. And really try to help businesses to understand that sustainability is not a trade-off. If done well, it should be a multiplier. That's my view. I want to kind of explore that. So, but before we start, can I ask? Maybe we start with ladies first, Georgie, just to give a 1 to 2 minute intro as to who you are and where you're from.
Thanks, Sarah. Hello. So I'm Georgie Rollings, founder of Starfish Accounting and currently co-CEO. I have a fabulous business partner because things are much easier when there's two of you rather than one. And we are a B Corp certified accounting firm. We're a zero specialist firm. Currently, we are a team of 10 based in sunny Berkshire.
Nice, nice. Welcome. Two female co-founders, is that right? Two female
Two female
co-CEOs.
co-CEOs, yeah,
I
yeah.
love that.
Although we're worrying about our diversity statistics, we've made it up to 20% male.
Oh, well done. Good effort. James?
Similar story actually. So my name's James Lizars, and I'm the owner of Thrive Accountants in Sussex. So I'm a sole practitioner, but we're a team of 8. Also, zero partners and B Corp certified.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you. Um, it is good to have you on the call because obviously I worked with both of you on your B Corp certification. Well, actually, no, James, you did the first one without me, and we're currently
Hmm.
going through your recertification now, aren't we? Which is exciting. So, if slow. So, the number one misconception I see is that people are not linking finance and sustainability together. They're seen as two separate areas. And what tends to lead to is people thinking it's kind of a nice to have, and they won't allocate a budget, whether that's money or time, to that because it's a nice to have. Now, I see it quite differently. With my finance hat on, I see it as this is in my 30-year career. I believe this is the one of the it's no harder than what you're doing in business, is what I truly believe from what I've seen. But it's more rewarding and more financially beneficial. Conscious I run profit impact, so people would say, yes, but Sarah, you would say that. So do you honestly think about sustainability and its links to finance?
Do you want to
Who wants
start,
to go
James?
first?
Yeah, go on then. I think there's a couple of things that really stand out for me. One is treating it as a bolt-on. It's not a separate project, so in and of itself doesn't need prioritizing. If you consider it in amongst everything that you're doing, then it's a completely different mindset, and it's so much easier to actually implement that way.
Mm,
The other thing that I see that just kind of frustrates me is that people in our line of work, accountants, also see sustainability as about doing the right thing, about, being nice, which
yeah.
sure, it can be. You can look at it that way, absolutely, but there's a whole multifaceted business case that sits within sustainability on its own, which in our professional capacity, we'd do well to really understand. And once you really understand it, so you then can make those choices that shift you in that direction. There are some unsustainable business models that also work and make money, but sustainable business models work and make money. And it's a much nicer way
Yeah.
to live.
No, that's really interesting. Thank you, James. Georgie, what do
So
you reckon?
totally agree with what James has just said. I think it needs to be part of how you run your business, not a separate tick box exercise. And one of the things that we found quite surprising when we went through the B Corp certification process was that simply by how we've been running our business over the years and our values and how we approach things, we were actually sort of starting off with quite a decent base score without needing to make really dramatic changes. It was almost more about being able to communicate what we do and how we do it in a way that perhaps other people would understand.
Mm,
And from making a sort of finance case for it, one of the things that we have changed is how we acquire our IT equipment. So we're now buying reconditioned IT equipment, which is better for the planet and also cheaper. And I think there are so many different ways that you can run your business in a more sustainable way that also actually happen to save you money or increase your profits. It's almost, and this wasn't why we did it, but it's almost like a bonus extra semi-free marketing tool as well. So we're now
mm,
taking on clients who've reached out to us because they can see that our values match theirs. And at the end of the day, we all want to work with people that we resonate with. And if your values sit well within a B Corp framework, then you're going to come across other like-minded business owners, and it's a really good way to connect.
mm. Yeah, no, I completely agree with that, and I do see that a lot. Um, I saw something today on LinkedIn. Tony, you can choose whether you put this in. She's going to cut it all up, so if we fluff up, it's fine. Did you see the LinkedIn post about Bright HR today?
Yep.
So they have successful, well, unsuccessfully for them, been taken to court for their maternity policies, and it's really disappointing. I mean, that was all I could say when I read it. How disappointing that is, and that is how when you are values aligned, you are drawn to businesses that are values aligned, but you're also pushed away from those that aren't. That's for me now. That's like right. Well, I won't, and actually, it is a shame because I personally have used them in the past. So I think it is, and it doesn't mean every B Corp is perfect. Absolutely doesn't mean that. But it does mean you just I think you're right. It's that kind of attraction and that's something emotional inside that happens. Um, so it sounds like we all agree with each other, which is good.
Shock.
Always a good start.
Yeah, it is. So how how can we help change mindsets within within the finance community? Within practice and within industry, what would you say? Any ideas?
Something that James has been doing a phenomenal amount on, actually. I mean, just to shout out to James, one of the reasons why we went down the B Corp certification route was knowing what James was doing and seeing what impact it was having. So that inspired us to really kind of revisit how we run our business.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think talking about it is key. For years I've latched onto this word permission. And as accountants, we've got this privileged position where we can kind of give permission to a small business owner to do things a little bit differently, to do things that are perhaps values aligned, but not the way they've always been done. Be a bit of a trailblazer, make a choice to just, grasp the nettle, pay the real living wage. Just make some different choices that may not maximize profit in the short term. But actually, as accountants, we can show that profit maximization is actually a long-term game.
Yeah.
It may not help you make payroll this month, but in the long run, if you are able to grow your business as a result of making these sustainable choices, for want of a better term, then in the long run you are going to outperform competitors, or at least stand a chance to. So one of the things that we do in our business is kind of just try to live that in the open. We've got a transparency page on our website where we show our commercial performance. So part of our overarching mission is to demonstrate to our peer group, to other nosy accountants who might want to visit our website, how well we're doing. And sure, we're not the best performing practice in the land, but we're doing pretty well. And a lot of that growth is actually a result of how we hold ourselves, and how we speak about the sustainability agenda.
Mm. Word permission. Let me turn that around because it's going right in my eyes. The word permission is a really interesting one, and it really resonates with me because I have a deep held belief that most people are good, decent people. I just believe that. Otherwise, I wouldn't be, I wouldn't have set Profit Impact up. And I think a lot of people are trapped in this traditional way of working. Trapped is maybe not the right word, but that's the way it's been, and that's the way it is. And can I possibly say, right, we're going to put the living wage up this year. We're going to put the pay up to living wage. It's going to reduce our margin by a percent over the year. Well, we're going to make that decision because we believe that over time it's going to strengthen our business. I think we don't work like that. We work, and when I say we, I mean the system and the business systems and the finance systems. It's looking at, which is why Profit Impact is called Profit Impact. It's looking at the profit impact that you've got now, right? Rather than the decision you take today, what it could mean in the longer term. And I think you're absolutely spot on about the word permission. I think we need to give people, they need to understand they've got permission to do things in a different way, and give them the confidence to do that. I love the way you're transparent with your numbers, James, on your, go and have a little nosy. Like, you had a nosy already? No, it's really good. It's really good. Um, Green Element do that, don't they? They're another B Corp. I don't think they do their finances. I don't know if anybody other than you does their finances and their B Corp score. It's an interesting thing. Okay, so leading by example, giving permission. Here's a bit of a challenging question because I don't know the answer to this one, right? If someone is adamant that this is just woo-woo, tree hugging, a complete waste of time, what do you do? Do you ignore them and think they'll catch up eventually, or do you listen to them and talk things through with them? What do you reckon?
It's not going to suit everybody. I think that is the fundamental, isn't it? I mean, the reason why having a B Corp certification will make a business stand out is precisely because not every business is able to demonstrate, even if they wanted to, that they run their business in a decent, ethical, sustainable way. Having said that, I think even if somebody's absolutely determined that it's all a bit woo-woo and possibly, global warming doesn't exist, you can still have conversations around the edges. Look at what things they are prepared to consider, and that, in a way, that goes back to the financial drivers for it, which might be you don't start paying the living wage, but you do look at where you're sourcing your equipment from. Maybe you revisit your banking to make sure that you're with a partner that actually, looks after decent businesses. There are very many things that you can do without going full ahead into the land of B Corp. And I think a lot of those are worth considering.
Yeah. Thank you, Georgie.
I don't have many of those conversations.
Do you not?
No. Partly, I think it comes back to the privileged position of being middle-aged white guy. Fewer people are willing to stand up and challenge you. Partly it's that the same people that would speak in those terms, I tend to have already qualified out of our prospective client conversations. So I don't tend to have conversations with business owners who are not values aligned anyway.
No.
So I think where it does crop up occasionally, it's in the peer group of other accountants, and it's it's always respectful, from a position generally of seeking to learn, which is great. And I think there it comes down to our professional role actually, and back down to
Yeah.
that business case aspect of sustainability. That if you believe sustainability is woo-woo, then okay, that's really interesting from a professional competence perspective. There are elements to it that are just academically proven to
Yeah.
make more money, particularly in the employee engagement realm. But when you take a look at climate, if you believe that climate change is cyclical, all right, I'm not a climate scientist. I'm not going to go toe to toe with you on that. But what I will say is the evidence is pretty clear that climate is changing. And with that comes climate risk, which as professional accountants, we need to consider on behalf of our clients. So, for me, the number, it's roughly a 1 in 5 number that is in that group who will speak negatively about sustainability. But I think amongst accountants, you should really be able to squish that down to just a very, less than 5%. And for them, I think, okay, you go on. I'm not going to argue with you.
Yeah, no, that's it. It's so interesting, isn't it? As an interesting percentage as well. And I agree about the risk. I mean, we don't talk a huge amount about risk at the moment with our customers, but it is becoming more and more important. Um, so how you as an individual, as a business, is going to understand how that might impact on your customer and your business. So that is interesting, and that percentage is quite interesting. That 20%. So using James's straw poll of 80% of businesses get it, but maybe 1% of SMEs have done something, is what I think. Again, the straw poll is 10% of action, and James is 80% think that, it makes sense. There's a whole raft. And actually, joking about the straw poll, when you look at the charts, there is this huge chunk of people in the middle that have just they get it. Oh, yeah, I'll see that. Oh, yeah, I'll do that. Maybe do that next year. They're just not moving. So that's the group. So that is really interesting. Okay. So do you and this could be your business or one of your customers, or do you have any examples of where you've seen that it's really boosted financial performance? Not necessarily just becoming B Corp, but just having a sustainable business model.
We've got probably quite a few good examples of where businesses have seen benefit further down the line of approaching things in a more sustainable way. And
Yeah.
one of those is definitely around staffing. And
Mm.
we all know how difficult it is to hire and retain good talent, and how expensive it is to bring new people on board as well. And what we're seeing across our client base is where they look after their employees better, shock horror, they end up keeping them for longer, and having better hiring success as well. And I think what a lot of business owners will forget is that, I mean, I sit happily in Gen X, but millennials and Gen Z really, really want to work with a business that resonates with their values. So one of the best ways that you can attract decent talent in is to be very clear about what your values are. And if you have any form of credentials around sustainability as well, that's another thing that is really, really going to help. And so what we're typically seeing across our client base is that they are more stable, where they take these things into account and talk about them. whether
Yeah.
or not they're B Corp. And they are also better able to hire better quality of person. And at the end of the day, if you have the right people working for you and you're running your business in a half sensible fashion, chances are you're going to be a little bit ahead of the competition.
Mm. Yeah, no, that makes complete sense to me. But it's good to hear you're actually seeing it. Obviously, you're in the numbers. I think
Yeah,
we
we
have that
definitely see it
privileged
for
perspective, don't
ourselves.
we? Yeah.
Yeah, we definitely see it for ourselves, but also, we've got a craft brewer, for example, who's really careful to look after their team well. And that's a really difficult industry to hold on to people. We've got a coffee roaster who also has a couple of coffee shop outlets. And again, he's really passionate about not just how he looks after his people, but also the people that he buys the coffee beans from, and making
Yeah.
sure that they are paid well and that it's not coming in a way that is going to cause issues further down the line. And he talks about this in his marketing, that's part of his values and how he represents his business. And he's doing really well off the back of that. So there's lots of nice little factoids around how you treat your people, how you treat your suppliers, making sure that that is talked about and is clear on the website, and then that will over time mean that your business will outperform some of the others.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Thank you, Georgie.
Yeah, I think it's back to the point about sustainability being a bolt-on. It's really not. I think people will often think of it about the planet and consumption and waste perhaps, but not overlook the fact that actually how you treat your people is a core component of what we would talk about as sustainability, and treating your people well. And it extends beyond just your team, your customers as well. So if you
Mm.
do the classic stakeholder analysis of a business and look at all these different stakeholder groups, sure, the planet is one of those stakeholder groups that you must consider if you want to be a sustainable business. But sharing the benefits across all stakeholder groups is the key, and communicating what you're doing across all of those stakeholder groups is a really important component to the business case. If you've worked really hard to find the right type of sustainable packaging, you say, for your product, you should speak about it and explain what this sustainable packaging is, what its limitations are. If you're sending out something in the post that's some sort of food item, generally speaking, it's not going to be brilliantly recyclable, but it'll be a hell of a lot better than what we were doing 5 years ago. So being able to speak to both the existing work to be done and the work that has been done is key for getting some of these benefits back from the other stakeholder groups, whether it's appreciation of employees or prospects or customers, but also showing that there's work to be done still to maintain authenticity, so avoiding that sort of greenwashing bear trap, and showing to the market, showing to your peer groups what can be done, moving the needle more generally. And that's perhaps where it starts to come back to that planet stakeholder group as well. You're not going to impact the planet on your own through your
No.
own decisions. But if you can start moving the needle across a segment of the industry, and if lots of people are doing that, then it does make a difference.
Yeah, no, it absolutely does. Um, Thank you for that. Um, I don't know whether either of you got an example of this. 'Cause I'm trying to kind of untap the right word? Unpick maybe. What's the trigger? Have you got an example of a business that you've worked with that has actually started to act? And that could just be, starting small. It could be like a whole strategy. Uh, what I'm trying to work out, just trying to understand what you've seen, and I'm trying to understand what the trigger's been. So what has it, you know, So, to give you an example of one of our customers, they're a great business, and they're just, what's so impressive about them is they're literally doubling their revenue almost month on month. They're just on this huge growth trajectory, but they're hanging in there with profit impact. Like, we still work, they're still devoting time to it because they want to grow sustainably. They're absolutely, they just want to do it. And we're just setting up a big project now, the phase 3 project. But what was interesting, the phase 1 project was, oh, someone told me about you, Sarah. Help us do a carbon reduction plan, right? That was the trigger for them. They had to have a carbon reduction plan to win a contract. But what happened is, which is what I truly believe happens from what I see, is that once people start to learn and understand, it's a bit like, oh, right, yes, I get this now. We do need to keep going, little and often, and it does take time. So for them, the trigger was an external pressure from um, their customer. Have you seen anything?
I mean, not quite as explicit as that. For me personally, it's been a whole sequence of things that just take you along the path. I think the biggest thing is the mindset shift, though, to understand that what we were taught in GCSE business studies is not the way it has to be. Milton Friedman was, a great thinker of his time, but you can do things differently if you wish. I think Georgie spoke earlier about how when they started their B Corp journey, they realised that they're already doing an awful lot of
Yeah.
things. And I absolutely recognise that. I think, amongst our little community of zero partner firms, we're already progressive. We're already thinking differently to the traditional way of doing things. So actually, as a community, there's an awful lot of zero partner practices that are on a sustainability journey, whether they know it or not. They're doing a lot of the right things. There's a lot of care around the team. They're making some good decisions around flexible working, and whatever. Some brilliant employers out there who, you speak to them about B Corp, it's all, what's this? They're just sort of
Yeah.
learning about what the whole concept is, and yet they're doing it. So yeah, I think there's an awful lot, a lot more than we probably realize going on out there where
Yeah.
businesses are doing certain things. They understand that this is important, and not necessarily just bringing it all together to nail their colors to the mast as we are a sustainable business. I think
Mm,
that's a more intentional strategic choice. And
yeah.
really, it's kind of about going loud with it, about speaking about it, whether it's to influence, whether it's about marketing, whether it's just reaping the benefits of being this type of business. I think it's all valid.
Mm,
Yeah, I don't think I've seen a pattern where there's been one particular trigger that has meant that a business owner has suddenly gone, gosh, this is actually a strategic priority. I think for across our client base, the ones where we can see the most being done, they actually set up the business with that as an intent. And they'd seen businesses that weren't run very well and they wanted to do it differently. And I think, without wishing to diss all of us who are sitting here, back on generations again, we're Gen X. I think the younger generations, when they're coming in and setting up a business, I think it's sort of built into how they approach life. Aside from having a requirement where you're going for a government tender or an NHS tender, whatever it is, where now you have to report on these things. I think aside from that, I think a lot of older business owners perhaps don't realise that this is a valid approach,
no.
and they don't realise that that there are, good financial reasons for doing it as well as what they hear on the news. So there's probably quite a big education piece that's needed.
Yeah. yeah, again, I'm going to completely agree with you. It's very interesting what you said about the generational gap. So I am the expert in residence at King's College in London for their accelerator program for impact. So I actually coach the I was going to call them youngsters, but there are a couple of older people in there, about how to balance profit and impact. So as part of a group, um, there's, I think, 15 businesses. Every single business actually has got impact baked into their model, just because, to your point, Georgie, that's just the way they are. Most of them are Gen Zs. It's just like almost all of them. In fact, 13 out of 14 have set up a product or a service to make the world a better place.
Wow.
I mean, it is quite interesting, the difference, actually, the difference between the thinking in the two groups. It interests me because I don't believe that education actually has changed yet at university level. So I don't that there is some, but business education is still the traditional, like Milton Friedman model, I think. So yeah, that is really interesting what you say. And I think it does vary in terms of the triggers, which makes it slightly challenging to reach out to people and help them understand, because there's not one message that will work for everybody. That's interesting. So here's a question for you. What do you think if a business delays doing this? What's the potential impact to a business if they think, oh, yeah, this does look quite good, but you know what? I can't do it this year. I'm going to push it back to next year. What could be the impact on business?
Just being, numbers driven around it. I think they need to think long and hard about whether that's going to mean they're left behind. So it's a bit like the move to AI. We can all sit there and go, gosh, yeah, that's a bit out of my wheelhouse and that doesn't feel very comfortable. But if we don't tackle it, then we're going to be left behind. So if one of your competitors, or more than one of your competitors, are taking this seriously and are starting that process, and then they're able to talk about what they've done, they're going to be picking up business that, or employees, that you're going to
Yeah,
miss. So it really does feel like, um, well, as business owners, we it's that little quadrant where you've got the important and the urgent.
yeah,
And I think dealing with sustainability sits in the important and not urgent box. And I think that's the one that we all kind of drop. And actually, that tends to be the most important one.
yeah,
So it's really understanding what your different pressures and priorities are, and working out what the potential impact and potential benefits are, of dealing with that important and not urgent thing, and then making time for it.
yeah, yeah. Thank you,
I,
Georgie.
so I don't think there's one answer to this. I think it impacts different businesses in different ways. But certainly at the sort of the broad end of the spectrum, there is an argument to say that early mover advantage exists for an awful lot of industries. But I think, if you go into more niche areas of the economy, you'll find that there are businesses where if they don't act and really, really soon, then they'll be dead.
Mm,
So, where we know that the economy is shifting to a low carbon economy. We know that circularity is going to be far more important in the decades ahead than perhaps it is now, and it should always have been. But there will simply be products out there that won't exist as a result of this green transition. So it's a classic innovator's dilemma that took down Kodak. You've got to innovate your product. If your product is fundamentally about unsustainable consumption, then not innovating to have a more sustainable product is likely to kill your business at some point. Maybe you've exited by then, maybe you've taken all the wealth you want to by then, and you're all good. But I think the argument still stands.
mm. So again, I am in agreement with you, and I tell you what's going through my head is your view, that point that you've just made, James. Do you feel that the finance profession, accounting practices, should be advising that point to their customers?
100%, mate. It's essential. I think they are so, particularly at the smaller end of the spectrum, and businesses with sort of 30 head count and fewer, who else have they got advising them? We're in there. We have this requirement for continuous professional education. We should be educating ourselves on this topic and making sure that as we're speaking to these clients, we're flagging up these issues and making sure they're aware. So yeah, I don't think there's anyone else.
No, no, it is interesting because I do feel we've there's probably some early adopter advantage still available in some sectors, but I would say probably we're coming out of that curve now. I would also hope. I do think we are. There's enough traction now in that area, but we are now moving across into this piece where people need to understand the financial implications of not understanding this. Um, yeah, I really feel we're it's that classic risk and opportunity, isn't it? You know, what opportunities have you got within your business that could be more attractive to do than the risk of not looking at this. So, and it's like it's a classic trade-off. I did a piece of work for our new platform that we've just released, Mindseed, and I've done a section on risk this time. So just I've got to 34 risks, okay, for small and medium-sized businesses. I decided I'd stop at that point. I think it's fairly comprehensive. But that's a number of risks that businesses have got, and it, that's a result, I believe, not solely, but a lot of it is because all we do is focus on growth, and so every decision we make is to grow, and it's not a balanced decision, and so we're living with the risk. Then the risks are getting bigger and bigger, and there is going to become a point where the risks will outweigh the opportunities if we don't pull that down. Like thinking really strategically for the business world, the risks are rising and they're getting higher. So at a business level, um, business owners, they do need support to understand that, and then they can make decisions. I think the innovation is really interesting, isn't it? Because a lot of new businesses that are just innovating and they're just having this pure sustainable product and that's all they're selling. It's really hard for them because they don't have enough market. They've got to really spend a lot of money to get their business out there and do the marketing, so it's quite tough for them. But I actually think for established businesses this is brilliant because they got a business already which is trading. They can just bring something in. They can bring an innovation in that's is adjacent to what they're doing, and over time, that's what I would be saying to my customers in terms of how they should be planning. They don't need to completely upend their business, but they need to be able to look forward and make changes with a view to what's happening.
Think that's a really, really good point, Sarah. I was thinking about other business types where shifting into a more sustainable model is actually really, really difficult, partly because of consumer behavior. So if you look at something like fast fashion, for example, people
Yeah.
want to buy clothes that are cheap and on fashion, and they don't care where they're made, how they're made, what materials are used, what the environmental impact is of those materials and how they're produced. They just don't care. But there's nothing to stop a fast fashion brand from having a bolt-on brand for people who would rather pay a little bit more for a more sustainable offering. Or if you look at somebody like an interior designer,
Yeah.
I was having a lovely conversation with a guy who runs an interior design firm, And one of the things that they're finding is that consumers want to have a sustainable offering. And then when they're told of the cost, they say, well, actually, no, I'm not going to bother, because sometimes a sustainable option is a more expensive option. So it's not going to be for everybody. And if they model their business purely on providing a sustainable offering, I think they would struggle. But they have some clients who are really, really pleased that that sustainable offering is there and will pay more for it. So it's having that as a bolt on is a really, really good approach.
Yeah. It's almost like it's like a stepping stone, isn't it? Because the reason sustainable is so expensive is because the volume is not there. And so over time, then it should become more affordable. Hmm. Good. Well, your companies will be well informed then, your client base, you too. Um,
That's the plan.
so I am gonna get a bit woo-woo now, if that's okay. Um, let's get woo-woo. Do you how does it make you feel as a business owner having a business that is balancing people, planet, and profit? And actually, the response doesn't need to be woo-woo. You know, if it's like, Sarah, cards on the table, I've done this for commercial benefits, that's perfectly good. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to see how it made you feel inside.
Do you want to go first, James? You're ahead of me on this journey. I feel like you should get the first dibs on this one.
I don't tap into it very often. Um, it's funny. It's like with so many things with a business. When you're running a business, you're always like aiming for the next, the next, the next, the next, and you don't really take that opportunity to step back and take stock of where you've got to. So yeah, I don't really pay much attention to it most of the time. Um, However, one of the real driving forces behind what I do is my kids. And this thought I had, I don't know, 2020 sometime around what does it mean to do my bit? And, you know, I'm an accountant owning an accounting practice. I think at that time, my kids were like 1 and 4. And projecting forward to when they were teenagers, this idea that I'd run the most commercially successful version of the accounting practice that I could do, um, but the planet was screwed. What are my kids, my teenage kids, going to think about my legacy? It would have been a broadly negative, I think. So that really started shifting my thinking. It's like, what if 10, 15 years from that point, I'd actually achieved something much more impactful, had much more of a legacy to show them. They'd still be grumpy teenagers, but it would have been less justified, perhaps, if I was just like, oh, I've got this banging pension fund for myself to go on cruises. Good luck with your lives. Versus, hey, look, we've used our business to influence all these other businesses, all these other accountants who influence other businesses. And we've met our million tree pledge that we committed to really help draw down carbon dioxide for decades to come. Because it's not just enough to stop putting it up there. There's too much up there. We need to pull it back down again. So yeah, that idea of creating a legacy is core. And I do carry that with me. I just don't check in with it much.
Mm.
I think for me, like if I look back 30 years ago, I was a member of Greenpeace. I've always been very concerned about what we are doing to the environment, and what we're leaving for future generations. Uh, I'm a basically lifelong member of the RSPB. I make sure that my money goes in directions to help support organisations that are improving our landscape and trying to make sure that things aren't lost. and that always felt really separate from my professional existence. It just it didn't have anything to do with it really. And I think one of the things that has almost felt quite joyous is that there's now a connection there. It's like that bit of my personality doesn't have to be separate from my business. It can be a functioning part of it. Um, it gives me goosebumps thinking about it, to be honest. And what we're doing is so small. We're not going to solve global warming, absolutely no chance. But we can support businesses that are doing good things that can make more of an impact. And in our little patch, we can encourage people to function in a more sustainable way. And it feels like, okay, I didn't go and work for one of these amazing organizations that does really good things. But that doesn't mean that I don't have any form of an impact.
No.
So yeah. And then, imagine my follow-on joy when it turns out that actually we're now attracting a really interesting type of client and we've got commercial benefit from doing it. I didn't do it for the commercial benefit, but I'll take it. Thank you very much. So yeah, it makes me smile.
Oh, that's really nice. That is really nice. That's a bit funny comment by me, but I do really, this is when I don't know when I said it 20 minutes ago, is that I fundamentally believe most people are good, decent people. And so we're over here and we might be donating to food banks or, yeah, helping the grassroots football club keep going or donating to RSPB, well, whatever it is, a lot of people. I mean, there's so many charities established in the UK now, many of them which are struggling, sadly. But we do all this stuff outside of work because we're good people, and then we get into work, and employees and business owners work in that traditional way. So I think everything that's been said in this call is I've enjoyed this call so much because what James, that use of the word permission, right? You can, Georgie, you can do what you want. You can donate to RSPB. You can be an activist within Greenpeace. You can do all that, but you can also then drive it through your business. And I would argue, and I do believe this, that what you're doing now is going to have an even bigger impact than all the stuff you've done outside of your business. Because people will respect you and they will see you as a pillar of the finance community. So people outside of your, and so I don't mean not your customers, and then your customers are going to be listening to you for your advice. So it's huge. It's huge. And the children point, James, yeah, I mean, I actually got a card from my daughter. I don't know whether you're going to put this on LinkedIn, Tony, because and he is on LinkedIn. She actually sent me a card to say, "You're in your cool mum phase."
Oh
And
my God.
Oh God, that's parenting goals right there, isn't it?
so it's tough. What I'm doing is quite tough at the moment, so I'm having to dig quite deep. But Annie sees it, and she's compliments always so easy to come forward. Freddie, who's my eldest, he's really interesting. So he's done history and he's a real thinker. And he'll come up with an idea for profit impact. And I'll say, yeah, but we got to remember that businesses are not quite ready for this. He just doesn't understand it. No, and it's what James is saying. And I think you said it earlier, Georgie, about the younger generation. For them it's so obvious. It's so obvious. They're just like they don't get it. So I know, Georgia, you got children as well. I think when your children get to my children's age, you're a little bit behind me, you will definitely get a cool mum card and a cool dad card. I can see it coming now. It's the best card I've ever had. Oh dear.
Amazing.
I've definitely found that my children have been a whole lot more excited about the B Corp thing than my husband, who still sits there and after many conversations and says, "What's B Corp?" My children are like, "Yeah."
How old are your children?
15.
Oh, right. Oh, okay. Oh, it's not that far behind mine then. Actually, my
Yeah.
youngest is 15. Yeah, that's very interesting. I think my husband slowly it took a long time. And he's a good, decent
Yeah.
person, but it took him at least 3 years to get what I was doing.
I
We've
think
been
the thing my husband finds fascinating, to go slightly off topic, is that commercial benefit. I think when I was
Yeah.
doing it and saying, gosh, because it is a time consuming process, right? So,
Yeah.
gosh, I'm spending quite a lot of time doing this. I think he thought I was absolutely barking mad. And now I'm saying, oh, we've had this amazing client sign up and they found us on the B Corp directory. And I'm so excited to be working with them. And they've taken on all the services from the get go. And it's so amazing. He's like, oh, okay.
Ah,
yeah,
So I
and
think
we've
for some people it's that commercial
yeah.
bit that's the thing that's
Yeah.
going to make the difference. He owns his own business as well. So
Right.
he's probably a good example of the Generation X who don't really get it, but might get
No
it as a proper commercial benefit from it.
benefit. Yeah.
I mean, that's it. We've been so deeply programmed that a business exists to make profit. Um, Profit is an outcome, and profit is really important for a business. But for small businesses in particular, it's rarely the goal. It's rarely the reason. It's about the impact that the profit has that actually is what it's
Yeah.
all about. And different business owners will make different choices on that front. For one, profit enables them to provide their family with a safe, secure home that they never had when they were growing up. For another, it's about the impact of um, being able to achieve those wealth ambitions. But for what? No, it's not about spending 70 hours a week working. It's so you can actually enjoy the money with your family. For every different business owner, there's a different reason that the profit is the goal. So it's
Yeah.
actually not the profit that's the goal.
No,
Um,
no, it's the
and
outcome of it. It's what
yeah,
the impact of it's the impact of the profit.
exactly. And for good people that are values led, the impact of that profit is also about reducing the negatives as well,
Yeah.
creating the positives for your team, reducing the negative impacts on the community or planet. It's all a bit of a balancing act, which is where the B Corp framework is so important and so valuable because it balances all of those potential areas of conflict so that actually you get a good all-round decision that generally pushes the business forward.
Mm, yeah. Thank you. Thank you, James. Thank you, Georgie. I that was such a good conversation. I really did enjoy that, and it's really complex what we're trying to do, but in other ways, actually, it's just not, is it? It's actually just starting, working out what you need to do, and doing it over time, and having a business that is what you want. Yeah, then that's
Yeah.
the thing. It's not what other people want, it's what you want. So
And like James says, it's also a bit of a legacy, isn't it? It's being able to look back and going, I did that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. I grew to 1 million of gross recurring fees and sold it to a consolidator. Yay, legacy.
Right.
Oh dear. Right. Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Is there anything else anybody wanted to say, or are we done? We're done.